What is going on, Busy Bariatrics? I'm Rob, your favorite VSG man turned bariatric coach, here to help you stop white-knuckling your way through chicken, broccoli, and diet-air meal plans, ditch the endless hours of cardio that leave you sweaty but still stuck, and finally fix the habits, patterns, and behaviors that got you here in the first place. Let's get gritty, let's get honest, but most importantly, let's get busy. Real quick, before we get started into this episode, if you are loving what you've been hearing week over week, please take a screenshot, tag me and Cam, and share this with someone who needs a mindset check around fat loss. Let's help people stop spinning their wheels and start burning with a purpose. Cam, welcome to the show, man.
What's going on, Rob? Appreciate you bringing me on, man. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. For people who don't know, Cam is an online fitness coach. I actually first met him coming up through NLCA together, where we were both two young coaches who were really having a clear vision of what we wanted. But the more important part is, you may not remember this, Cam. The first time I actually talked to him, he was getting a pedicure in our group.
Do you remember
this? And
I do.
Oh my
I do. I sent it on accident, actually. I meant to send it to my group, and I ended up dropping it in that chat. And then once it was out there, it's like, let's roll with it. Let's see what happens.
What I love about Cam and what I realized there is, dude, I'm not like a foot person, but more importantly, you show up for yourself and you own whatever happens. And you're like, dude, I need some self-care and to do it. And Cam was very quiet, I think, prior to that in our group. And as we both started to develop, mature, he would give these very big leadership speeches of here's what it takes to be successful. I, in return, was like, you know what, if he could do it, I could do it. And we started to build a rapport of just understanding what it takes to be successful, not just in fat loss, but what makes it important to build a business. So, Cam, how did you get involved with fitness?
Man, so fitness has always been a part of my life. I mean, going back to just sports in general, right? I played basketball, played soccer growing up. And so just being athletic and moving was always a big part of my life. When I actually got into fitness, more in the realm of like what we're talking about, right? Fat loss, strength training, all that stuff, is when I was 16 years old, I was playing basketball. I stepped out for a defensive slide and there was a big wet puddle. So I hyperextended my knee. I was out for I think like 8 to 10 months. And so I was walking, but, not physically active. But of course, my eating habits didn't change, right? So I started putting on the weight very quickly. And before long, my mom, due to basketball and stuff like that, was like, hey, let's go and handle this. So I actually joined Jenny Craig. That was the first diet that I did. Had the meal prepped and everything. Yep, I was 16 years old doing Jenny Craig. And then after that, just continuously gaining weight, losing weight, I tried everything just across the board. So eventually I ended up figuring it out for myself, and that's what got me into coaching and all that stuff, to make a long story short. But yeah, I feel like fitness has always been a aspect of my life in one way or another.
I love that. And for the bariatric community, so much of that story resonates, as far as a lot of bariatric patients were athletic at some point and have some sort of injury that derails and then kind of causes this slide. And then I think it goes through the rainbow of every diet. Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, if there was like a cabbage soup detox, you name it, we kind of went through it. But that's why, like, I always resonate with you is not everyone understands how difficult fat loss. When you're coaching clients, what do you see to be the biggest or most misunderstood thing when it comes to fat loss?
Oh, for sure. The main thing is that they think it's a strategy thing, right? And that it's just like, hey, I just got to do all the physical stuff, right? I got to eat, I got to go to the gym, I got to move my body. And of course, that's part of it, right? If you just sit there on the couch and change your mindset, you're not going to lose the weight. But at the same time, I think so much of why we don't do that, right? Why it's something that's a foreign concept to us and we have to change is the mentality side of it, right? And changing how we look at our habits, what we do on a daily basis, why we've held ourselves back, why we immediately lean into justifications or feel like this should be easier than what it is. Understanding the goal exactly that they want to achieve, all that stuff is so impactful. So I would say 9 times out of 10, I think the reason why people struggle is the mindset aspect of weight loss.
I think it's very, very common, even with bariatric surgery, is everyone thinks it's, okay, I'm going to get this surgery and then I don't really have to do anything, or the sleeve will do the work. And our clients who actually get the best results are very similar to what your clients probably have, is when they realize they need to make a lifestyle change. How do you help
Absolutely.
clients understand the importance?
Yeah, so I mean, it's tough, right? Every individual client is different, right? In terms of what they're dealing with mentally, right? I mean, some people have really had food traumas, right? Where like, I heard one individual tell me that they wouldn't eat all of their dinner, and their parent actually like strapped them into their seat, right? And put like a belt around them and told them they can't get up until they eat, right? So like things like that obviously are much different than someone who's like, yeah, I just don't feel like people are going to love me, right, as much if I don't eat, right? So it's like it's different. But at the same time, the thing that I always ask clients on our sales call, right, when we're first joining, we haven't even gotten together yet, is I ask people, are you looking for someone to help guide you on this journey, or are you looking for another scapegoat? Are you looking for someone to blame and say, this is why I can't do this? Or are you looking to actually make this change this time and do something different? And that pretty quickly gets people to figure out like, ooh, am I ready for this? Or am I looking for a way to make this another out for me?
I love that. And I don't think it's covered enough, I think, in the online fitness space is there are actually people who sign up so that they can say, like, this is another failed attempt or
Absolutely.
this is something that happens. And I think you're seeing it a lot in the fitness space as a whole, because in bariatrics, a lot of the times it's like, well, I'm also perimenopausal. So there is no way that calories in, calories out don't work. Or I have a damaged metabolism from being obese. So there's no way that the laws of thermodynamics work with us. How do you kind of differentiate or shift the mindset of people that you have to kind of do the work in order to get the results?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the easiest way for me to do that is to explain why they even want the goal in the first place, right? And so what I mean by that is people go like, well, this is really, really hard, Cam. I mean, I'm busy. I got kids, I got work, I got family things, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, but that's the point, right? Because if I could go to Walmart and they had a six pack on sale for $200, everybody would have a six pack. Everybody be walking around losing weight and feeling amazing and having all these things, right? But the reason why you want it is because it's something that not everybody has, which means that it has a level of difficulty to it, right? And so I think from that aspect, if we change our mindset to not being, how can I make this as easy as simply like is humanly possible and not have to put in work? How many corners can I cut? How much can I get away with? Instead of looking at it that way, but rather going, no, I want to be someone who holds themselves to the highest standard. And I know that that's going to resonate with people that I do that in every area of my life, right? The body gives people the belief that, hey, you're going to do well in your career. Why would you believe that? Why do people think I'm going to be a good coach if they've never really met me before, right? It's our first time jumping on a call because they look at the way that I look and the way that I handle myself and how I'm out doing my steps in the morning and how I wake up early. All of these things kind of go in line, right? So it's one of those things that, again, going back to the mindset, it's not something that we're trying to cut the corners and do as little as humanly possible, but have these like this fake facade. We're actually trying to create the habits so that you do this across the board as a parent, as a partner, an employee, as an entrepreneur, as everything, right? You show up and you put in the work across the board. And I think if we can do that, again, that's where it changes that mindset.
I think so many times we see in life so many people trying to see how can we cut the corner or how can we adjust on that. And as two people who have built rather successful businesses, I will say it's the same things are true. You have to build it on a foundation. And I think a lot of the times when we see other coaches, they are looking at it as like, oh, online fitness is easy. You don't have to show up to the gym. You just have to like dance on TikTok and then people just walk in. But the same is true for getting a six pack or building a six-figure business is you really have to have a strong foundation. You have to have core values and beliefs, and then you have to put in the work every day. So when a client starts with you, how do you start to establish a pattern of here's what we need to do, but also like how to build that foundation?
Yeah, so the first thing that I always challenge my clients with is everything that you know about health and fitness, I want you just to forget it. Okay. It's not to say that there's not some good things in there, right? But it's probably been also cluttered with some other things that are kind of like creating bugs into everything else. So let's just throw that out the window and start fresh, right? And from that standpoint, if they really buy into that, then there's not this constant back and forth, right? Of like, well, yeah, Cam, like I know that it's calories, right? But like I've also heard that I have to stop eating at 6, so I'm never going to eat after 6 o'clock, no matter what you tell me or what that means for my calories or for my protein for the day. I'm just not going to do it, right? And so I think getting that foundation and getting a hey, it's not to say that keto's wrong, right? You can absolutely lose weight doing keto. It's not to say that doing, a juicing cleanse is wrong, right? Might work for some people. But what we're doing is this, and you bought into this. So let's do this. And then if you don't like that later on, you can go back to something else, right? But we're here. Let's just do this now, right? And so I think just, yeah, that getting that foundation, getting it clear and open of what the expectation is, and then explaining why that's important, right? And making sure that they understand that, I think, is key.
There's so much that's great on that because I think in Busy Bariatrics, we do a very similar thing of what are the rules of weight loss
Right.
that you've either grown up or thought. And it's very similar, like, oh, carbs are bad, or if I
For
eat
sure.
after 6 p.m., it changes things. The sugar content in a banana is going to cause weight gain. And yes, sugar content plays a role if you have some sort of
Sure.
history of diabetes, but
Right.
it's usually something else that causes that. And it's just funny because like people think like keto's effective for me. It's like, well, keto was effective because you were in a caloric deficit.
For
A
sure.
juice cleanse will be effective because you're in a caloric deficit. Bariatric surgery will be effective because you're in a caloric deficit, just like GLP-1s or anything else, whether it's a diet or a tool or a technique. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, how do you keep this sustainable? And I think that's where it gets missed a lot with
For sure.
clients, but as well as in the fitness space, is this idea of how can this work for when your kid's birthday party happens, when you go on a vacation across the country, if you're living on either a low income or a super high income, like those factors have to kind of stay true. So what are some of the like key things that you do to help your clients understand the importance of just building that foundation?
Yeah, so I think in terms of like it becoming sustainable, right, is really understanding two things. One, what is your actual goal, right? Because there's so many people that come in, right, and they'll be like, "Man, I really want to be like you, Cam. I really want to be able to build the muscle and do this, that, and the other." And I'm like, "Perfect. So what are we doing?" I'm eating like 1,100 calories per day, and I'm just trying to stay away from carbs. And it's like, but that doesn't make sense for the goal. Like you're starving yourself. How are you going to build muscle if you're not doing anything to be able to give your body the ability to grow, right? So I think really locking into what the individual's goal is and then explaining that goal might be different than what you've done or what you've seen other people do, right? So I think that's one. But then two is the lifestyle aspect of it, right? If you are, for example, I've had people that are like police officers that are working, round the clock, right? Having constant change in their schedule, all this stuff, their parents, they're all these things. And so that lifestyle is not going to make sense compared to an 18-year-old that's like, hey, I just want to put on muscle and I got all the time in the world to go to the gym because I work 3 days a week. I live with my mom and dad and I only work 4 hour shifts when I work, right? Completely different, right? So then we have to be able to build things around that. But all of that comes down to understanding yourself, understanding your goals, and not buying into the idea that one size has to fit all, right? You have to fall into this little narrow thing because this is what worked for this one person on TikTok or this one person that I know from work or this. It can be unique to you. And that's going to create that sustainability, right? Because it's actually going to work for you.
I will say from my own weight loss journey, but then from coaching others, I was very dogmatic early on of like, this is kind of how you have to do it.
For sure.
And as you coach more clients, especially I think when we look at like some of the most important jobs like doctors, nurses, police officers, people who are working these long shifts, you kind of have to make some adjustments as far as their nutrition and fitness because telling them like first the whole idea of we all have the same 24 hours in a day, tell that to an ER doc who's worked overnight for a 12-hour shift. And then you're saying, like, okay, after work, you got to go to the gym, or before that 12-hour
Hmm.
shift, you need to
Right.
lift weights and do everything. As you start to like see those caveats, I think it's more important, like, that you understand that it really is an it depends answer
Oh, for
and
sure.
adjust accordingly. And the cool thing of every time I talk with Cam, if you're listening to this, is we always get very undogmatic in our approach. Like, well, technically we could do this or we could kind of do that. But I
Hmm.
think it really comes down to what mindset do you need of how to get it through. So how do you start to establish the idea of a growth mindset in your clients to help them through their weight loss phases?
Yeah, so this is also kind of something that I think kind of frustrates my clients in the beginning and confuses them is a lot of times it's exactly what you're saying. I look to collaborate with my clients so much more than I just outright say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I think that confuses a lot of people because they're like, Cam, just tell me what I need to do to lose weight. And I'm like, I can't really do that. Right? You have to tell me what actually works, right? And what you're actually going to stick to. So a lot of times there's like that collaborative effort that I think confuses people, but in terms of getting them like really to buy into the fact that it's something that's unique to you, right? Is that I go back and show them why certain things haven't been successful for them, right? You did great for 3 months, let's say on keto, right? Just since that's a big one that people do. But then you went on that vacation and there was no way for you to stick to that because you wanted to be able to go out and do this, that, and the other, right? You wanted to have some drinks. You wanted to be able to make things fit. And so from that standpoint, that's, what didn't work here, right? But we can still take attributes of what worked there and move it over here. Maybe you really like to have sausage and eggs and, ham and whatever for breakfast, right? You really enjoy that, or a big omelet or something. Let's put that into this and that'll just be a high protein breakfast for you, right? We'll make out some swaps and we'll make sure that it hits your goals, right? So it's like one of those things where it's like you have to be okay with the fact that your journey is going to be unique to you and that your life isn't everybody else's life. But I think that also kind of just the transition here also goes into the idea that your results aren't going to be everybody else's results, right? And you have to be okay with that. They might be drastically better or they might be drastically worse in terms of just kind of comparing, right? And well, in 6 months, I only lost this much weight and they lost 2 times what I lost. But this is your journey. And if it makes it that you can actually stick to it, then what does it matter? Because if that person lost 30 pounds in 30 days, but 90 days, they're back to only being down 4 pounds, right? And you lost 4 pounds in 30 days, but in 90 days, you lost 12. You won the race, right? So it's like you got to be okay with slowing down is better a lot of times, more so than it being looked at as worse.
I think a lot of the times, even in the bariatric community, one struggle we have is you see rapid weight loss transformations. Or even myself, like when I was 365 pounds, and then you see me at about we'll say 15. You don't realize there's like 18 months in between that. There's like 4 different stalls that are in between that. There are
Hmm.
3 different times where I was ready to quit in between that. And I think it's really tough, even whether you're a bariatric patient or a regular fitness patient, is this idea that it just takes time. And so many times we've seen as people who have grown up in diet culture of we've all done the 30 pounds in 30 days.
For
And
sure.
when you do that, it's like, yeah, I absolutely did it. Well, then why did it stop working by the 45th day? And it's like, oh, yeah, I hadn't had pizza in 30 days. It didn't incorporate alcohol. It doesn't explain that I like coffee in the morning. Something I've always liked in your content, Cam, is you show very realistic approaches of how to either eat fast food or dine out or do everything. How did you start to develop that? And why do you think it's so important that clients understand how to work within those measures?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing that started with that is kind of like what you said. I was the avid 30 pounds in 30 days type of thing, like person, right? And I recently stumbled upon this photo that I saw myself, I had done like a comparison back in, I want to say like 2013, let's say. And it was me, at 250, whatever. And then it was me, like, I think 4 months later, and I had gotten down to like 160, right? So I'd lost almost 100 pounds. But the thing that I
Phenomenal.
noticed is, but also when you look at that photo of me 90 pounds lighter, right? I looked super sick. Like my eyes were sunken. Like I didn't, and even though I was smiling and giggling in this photo, like you could tell I was laughing, I had no muscle mass. My arms were little twigs, right? I had lost everything. Like I didn't just lose fat, I lost everything. And I remember during that time being very angry, being very frustrated. I was always kind of like jumping on top of people whenever they would ask me anything, right? I was just quick to snap. And so I think all that experience taught me that when I actually did this the right way, right, and gave myself the foods that I wanted and things like that, that I was looking at it and like, man, I can actually enjoy what I want here, right? And at first, everything was made at home and everything was like this. But then I started to venture out a little bit more and I was like, I can actually do this. And now I help people all the time that are losing weight. And some of them are truck drivers, right? Where they're on the road for 20, 24 hours sometimes, right? And they're doing these long shifts. and they're having 2 or 3 fast food meals per day. They're not losing the weight the absolute fastest out of everybody, but consistently, because they're actually tracking versus grabbing whatever they want, they're losing the weight and they're moving their body a little bit more than they would otherwise. And they're intentional about doing the workout in the back of their truck and things like that. And all of a sudden they start getting these results, right? So I think it's one of those things that I try to show that reality, because people don't need to lose 100 and 150 pounds most times. If you just lost 20 pounds and you moved more, your life expectancy is going to go dramatically up, right? We like the big numbers. We like the crazy, sexy, oh my gosh, how did you do it, Rob? What, this is insane. But it's not always necessary. And you're going to feel better being down 10 pounds. You're going to feel better being down 20 pounds, right? You're going to feel better with more movement. And if we can just buy into the idea that, like, 100 pounds will come whenever it comes if I need to lose that much, right? But I'm just going to take it five pounds at a time, right? I'm just going to take it day after day and be happy with the little progress. I think that means so much more for people. Being able to integrate that, long story short, comes down to just, how can we actually make this real for you? How can we still treat you? And how can we still make sure that you're happy? Because all the goals that we want from losing 20, 50, 100 pounds is happiness, right? More energy, more confidence, feeling better, being with our family longer, being with our kids longer, whatever. So if you hate the life that you live, even though you got to live an extra 20 years, was it really worth living the extra 20 years? I don't know, right?
I think a lot of the times we coach the long game, which gets lost on people of, like weight loss is very boring and unsexy. Like proper sustainable weight
Absolutely.
loss is so unsexy and boring because it's really maybe half a pound here, like a week. It might be a pound, but like in reality, if you said, like this episode's airing in January, what if next January you were down 30 pounds? You would be like, I'd take that all day. And you'd be like, okay, that means you have to lose like half a pound to a pound every other week. And they'd be like, no, that's boring. That's going to take too long. And it's like, well, in the grand scheme of, as someone who's 41 as of this recording, if you could tell me at 42 I could be 30 pounds lighter, I'd absolutely sign up every
Yeah.
day. If you could also let me add a little bit of muscle on that frame, I'd be thrilled to death as well. But I think a lot of the times that's where it gets lost, is this idea of you just have to embrace the boring and do the unsexy work. So what are some of the boring things that clients kind of have to embrace to be in the right frame for fat loss?
Yeah, so I mean, I think number one, and this one's a little bit harder, more so than boring, is sleep, right? So many people don't get enough sleep, right? And a lot of time, yes, they're parents and they're busy and they have things going on. But like, for example, my wife will go to sleep, right? Go lay down, even though she's complaining, I'm dead tired, I've been tired all day. And she'll scroll on TikTok or Instagram for 30, 40 minutes before she ends up going to bed. Versus me, I just lay down and I go to sleep, right? So it's like setting yourself up for success, being disciplined enough to say, hey, I'm going to put that away. This isn't a good thing for me. I think is one of the unsexy things that people need to do. Secondly, and this is probably one of the bigger ones that I see for clients that I help them change, is not compounding your cortisol levels in the morning, right? So many of us, myself included, run downstairs after our shower and go, give me that cup of coffee, right? Like, I need to wake up. And it's like, if we could space that out a little bit, right, that'll be a little bit better. But the more traditional things, I think, are just moving more, right? Just getting up and walking. People think that they got to go and run miles, or they got to become like some super endurance runner to be able to do this stuff. It's like, just walk, just move more, get up off the couch, be willing to go and grab the remote instead of calling your kids to go and call it or grab it, right? Park at the grocery store and park further away. It's just unsexy things, right? Parking further away at the grocery store is like, really, Cam, this is going to make a difference? Yeah, it is. You're going to have to get it there and back, right? Going to the further bathroom away, there and back. Tracking is obviously unsexy, I think, for a lot of people in terms of nutrition, right? It's monotonous. It's like, Cam, I eat the same meals all the time.
Great.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. It makes it easier for you, right? Track it for the whole week and then just do your snacks, right? Or whatever else you're going to kind of fit in between. But again, just kind of understanding that. And I think that, again, kind of being tangential here, I think that leads into something that I see a lot of times with clients, in that they think very drastic things happen from a little change, right? So I have a client recently who we adjust his nutrition because he wanted to lose more weight, and that was kind of his focus now versus building muscle. We dropped him down 200 calories, right? So he's now lost like 7 pounds in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think, right, compared to where he was at. And he's like, Cam, I can't believe 200 calories is what it was. 200 calories. That's it. That's like a pack of Reese's peanut butter cups. That's all I needed to give up to be able to lose this weight. And I told him, we weren't tracking consistently before this. You bought back in when we dropped down these 200 calories and you started going forward. And I started doing the math to him, right, of 3,500 calories, being a calorie deficit for the entire week, and all these things. And I was like, it's not the 1,400 calories, it's that you bought back in with everything else and you started hitting the steps and doing all these things. So I think sometimes the holistic nature of it is also unsexy, right? We want one thing that we can point at and go, that was it. All I needed to do was cut out cut out carbs, right? That was it. It was done. And it's usually not. It's usually multiple factors that kind of all factor into one.
It's fun because we do a similar thing, and I teach my assistant coaches of if we're having a client who tracks consistently and we can't really get the scale to do what they want it to do, I simply tell them to stop tracking, and it freaks them out at first. I'm like, well, first off, like, it's not getting the result you want. Let's free up a little bit of the mental bandwidth. But more importantly, after like 2 weeks, they're ready to buy back in. It's like, oh my goodness, I wasn't tracking my condiments to this level, or oh, I was grabbing a couple extra dino nuggets off my kid's tray. And it's kind of funny because, tell me if I'm wrong on this, a lot of the times when a client stalls, the first thing they will say is like, we need to adjust the macros. And
For sure.
good. So you know where I'm going with this, where it's like, it's really not the macros so much as it's either a compliance or even the mindset around of, hey, you're probably a little fatigued of doing this, especially after like our initial gain and 3-4 months in.
For sure.
How do you kind of refresh a client or keep it going strong as they go longer into working with you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel like again, it's also like person to person based, but I think again, just getting them to reset, I think is so important, right? And getting them to really be real with themselves and real with you about what's happening here, right? Because oftentimes it's like what you said, right? They're like, I've just been snacking a little bit more, right? I'm not tracking everything the way that I used to. I started sneaking in a soda again that I don't track every night because I feel like I'm doing good enough, right? And we're all victims of that. I do this sometimes as well. I've noticed that for myself, right? Like I'll go a little bit over my calories and I'm like, it's all good though, because I've been doing good all week kind of thing, right? So none of us are immune to this. But I think the main thing is always buying back into what has worked, right? And just being real with yourself. When was I getting the results, right? And then saying, what got me there, right? Because the calories are just a byproduct of the mindset, right? Everything else is just a byproduct of the mindset. So what was I doing differently? And it's just that undeniable fact of I wasn't letting any mental noise come into this. This is my goal. I track everything to this and I'm done. Right. And I think having the reset, like you were saying, of not tracking for 2 weeks is beautiful, or for a week, or what people need, right? To just be able to say, hey, let's go ahead and do that. Another thing that I've done for some clients that are resistant to doing that is I'll just give them like a really big, like a refeed week, right? Where it's like, hey, we got much more room now. Right. So go ahead and enjoy a little bit, right? Be able to have some of those indulgences that normally you're like, oh, I can't, right? And then we'll come back and we'll be, locked in strong, things like that. But I think it's just really giving people the freedom to understand that they're not robots, right? They have taste buds, they have cravings, they have birthdays and holidays and vacations. And it's okay to have seasons where we're just doing okay. We don't always have to be in a space of lose weight, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight, right? We can slow down and say, hey, I'm just maintaining right now because I need a little break.
I love when my clients come to me as like, hey, I've gone like 5 weeks without losing any weight. And I'm like, that's actually really awesome, because now
Right.
you've kind of understood exactly your habits, patterns, behaviors for a month to maintain weight loss, which then kind of goes both ways of like, okay, so you kind of know this gives you the range where maybe you can have a couple extra handfuls of food, which is not a bad thing in maintenance.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe you can dine out 2 to 3 times and surf the same 2 to 3 pounds, which I think is phenomenal to free that up. It also helps us get this idea of like, look, if you're going into fat loss, I truly coach my clients of like, look, we want to get you in and we want to get you out as effectively as possible. So knowing what gets you into maintenance, you then kind of have to gauge of, okay, what do we need to change to create that caloric deficit?
Right.
And then that kind of allows a lot of the things that
Right, for sure. I think one other thing that it factors into why I think coaching is so important too is a lot of people don't understand that you can go through a period not really doing anything wrong and not lose any weight for 4 to 6 to maybe even 8 weeks for some people, right? I did a post about this recently that I started a cut kind of thing that I'm doing here in January, and I was 171.4. And I haven't really lost any weight. I'm still about 171.2. But my body's dramatically changed, right? And so the scale would tell me you're at a plateau, dude. You got to change something up. You're not losing the weight. Do something, right? But I think it's so important to take in so many other metrics and understand that it's okay to not always see success on the scale. It's okay to maybe not always see progress in the gym. It's okay to just have times that you're doing the work and it's not necessarily turning into this grand thing, and then all of a sudden it'll start moving again, right? Or you'll figure it out and say, okay, cool, like you said, I know now what my body needs for maintenance, so if this is just keeping me maintaining and I'm ready to go ahead and change, I need to do some things here, right? Maybe I don't go out 3 times on the weekend and maybe I only go out once now. Maybe I weigh everything out, right? Maybe I, do whatever that might be, right? It depends on the person. But I think that also is a big problem for people because they will be so quick to change things up after like a week of staying the same, right? I've lost 3 pounds every single week, and this week I stayed the same. Something's wrong. What are we doing to change it? It's like nothing. Let's just ride it out, right?
Yeah, it's always interesting because I think a lot of people have a lot of mistakes from fat loss, and I think especially for coaches who have been able to lose weight themselves or had a significant amount of weight to lose and then coach other people who have that, it gives them such a better feel of just how much you need to kind of stretch out the progress, but
For
also do
sure.
what's necessary. And I know we coach our clients, if they're in a stall or even at that point, they're like, well, I want to drop my carbs. I want to increase my
For
cardio.
sure.
I want to like double my protein goal and I want to start doing HIIT classes. And I'm like, you know what? Those are all four really good ideas that could change your metabolic function and how your body is burning fuel. Why don't we start with one so we know exactly which one works? And it's so unsexy because it really is the like, well, then it would take us like 2 months to figure out which one it is. Like, not necessarily. We might figure it out in the first 2 weeks. And then we still
Hmm.
have those other three aces in the hole to kind of put in place to work and develop everything. But lifestyle, I think, is really the toughest thing to teach because
For
even
sure.
after you get a client to lose weight, you kind of have to teach them how to live in maintenance. So, what are some of the
Hmm.
ways you transition clients from their weight loss phase into a maintenance phase?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really work with them on is what exactly a maintenance phase is, right? Because I think that it sounds great, right? I'm going to maintain. And I think their idea is I'm just going to, like, let's say you were 180 just for a simple number. You got to 180. You're going to stay now at 180 in their minds for the rest of your life. And I don't think that's realistically what maintenance means. Maintenance means you might go up to 185. But you're also going to come back down to 182 and then back up to 184 and then down to 180 and 181, right? Like it's going to fluctuate. And so I think that's a big thing. It's not to panic as soon as something changes because it's inevitable, right? I mean, even if you were trying to, maintain, you might go below 180, right? And go down to 178 for a week or two, right? And those things happen. So I think that is a big thing. But two, also starting to change the metrics from watching the scale into how you feel in other areas, right? We've all had that where especially once you've lost weight, you wake up, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you're like, okay, dang, I see some outlines, I see this, that, and the other. Step on the scale, you're up 3 pounds. You're like, what?
You got to be kidding me.
Right. Isn't realistically speaking here, right? Like just thinking about it logically, isn't that an insane reaction? Like the whole purpose of what you want is the mirror and the look and the feeling, right? And then you jump on a scale and you're worried about what that says. I always make the joke of like, unless you're gonna walk around with your scale on your neck like a big Flava Flav chain, right? Like, what do you care if that thing said 260 pounds, but you looked better than you'd ever looked at 180? So what?
I it's 100% true because going back to what you were saying of your lowest weight, when I was
Right.
at like 210, that was my lowest weight, but I was like, how do I look like a greyhound and still have a beer belly? Like, this is the worst of both worlds. And
Right.
now I sit closer to about 220 to 225, but it's like I have traps, I have delts, like,
Yeah.
like I have a nice V taper. And
Right.
I think so many times clients have to understand that building muscle makes a completely different physique
For sure.
than just a straight
Absolutely.
weight loss. Because if you could tell a client, hey, you're going to be 5 pounds up on the scale, but you can have visible six pack abs, I would probably gamble 99% of clients would absolutely sign up tomorrow.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a huge difference, and I think again, kind of going back into like the mindset and stuff, which I apologize, I always go back to that, but even the muscle mass, right? It obviously makes a huge difference in the way that you look, but I think we're never truly going to be happy unless you start to realize that the whole purpose of this really wasn't about what you look like. It really wasn't about what the scale said. The whole reason why you want to be able to do this is because it's about showing yourself what you're capable of. No longer having limits on yourself, no longer feeling stuck, no longer struggling with that. I can't go out and chase my kids around because I'm just so tired, right? Or I can't go out and do the things that I want to do, maybe going on a boat and, talking about the 4th of July, right? Going on a boat and being able to sit there with my shirt off, right? Because I'd be self conscious, right? Those are really the things that we want. And yes, some of those have a byproduct of having the body and being leaner and being stronger. But I think the thing that I realized for myself is when I sat at my lowest weight, which was 157, I have photos from that time of my life. And when I look at those photos, I look at them and go, man, I was chiseled. I was so this, that, and the other. I was the most depressed that I've ever been in my entire life when I was in that space because I realized that nothing had really changed. I still felt insecure. I still felt like I wasn't valuable enough. I still was scared about eating certain foods and things like that. Even though I was doing the same things that you're talking about, the fast food meals and all those things. I was doing all that stuff, doing those videos, but I felt so depressed because I really wasn't happy with who I was. And I think that was the biggest thing that I learned and what I try to really teach my clients on is understand that this isn't about you being, oh, I'm not valuable. And when I reach this goal, I'm going to be valuable or I'm going to be worthy or people are going to love me. People are going to cherish me. People are going to admire me. Maybe. But the question is, do you love yourself? Do you cherish yourself? Do you admire yourself? Right? And those people's admiration and love and cherishing and, oh my gosh, you did such an amazing thing. I'm so proud of you. It feels nice, but it's never going to feel as nice as actually giving yourself those flowers and loving yourself through the process. And I think that that's such an underrated thing because we live in such a society that it's like kill yourself to be able to look like what other people want you to look like. And I think especially for women, that's super disheartening.
I think that's like just a beautiful spot for us to kind of say, like, yeah, it's why we do what we do. I think it's also
Hmm.
why you and me have always had a proper vibe because we have the same vision of what it takes not only to lose fat, but also how to live a lifestyle you're proud of. And I think that's kind of
Absolutely.
the one thing I hope people get out of this conversation. Before we close up, we do a part of the lesson where I walk you through the busy method and you teach rapid fire everything that we do in busy bariatrics. So the B stands for building. What's the best habit you've ever built when it came to weight loss or fitness?
I think it's the way that I talk about things in my life. So talking about, like for example, I had a client who was telling me, "Oh, pizza's my weakness." Pizza's not your weakness. You like pizza. But if you tell yourself it's your weakness, it's going to be your weakness, right? So I think just reframing things to not give myself an out and being honest with myself. So I think it's just the way that I talk about things in my life.
I think that's so powerful and I love it. The U is for understanding nutrition. I'm going to twist this a little because you're a coach. If you could teach the fitness community one thing about nutrition, what would it be?
There's no food that's going to make you fat.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what it is. You could fit anything that you want to.
I swear I could probably send you like 8 or 9 reels a day where I just sit there in an age of like seed oils is the reason that's holding you back,
Hmm.
or this one item is the reason you're doing it, or the reverse of you'll lose weight if you just ate more cranberries or whatever the fruit they
Hmm.
decide has that
Right.
effect. So it's why I always love talking to you on these ones. The S is for staying active. Favorite way to stay active?
Walking. I hate running with a passion. I always joked around playing basketball that if I could speed walk and play basketball, that would have been the ideal sport for me. So just walking. I don't want to do anything else.
My clients who are like, hey, I really want to run a 5K, I'm like, good for you. I'll put the programming in, but please don't think I
Yeah,
know the level that
like
other people who are runners know it for. All right, the why is for showing up for yourself. You have had your own weight loss journey. You are a coach. You are a husband. You are a father. How do you show up for yourself and balance all this?
I just think it's the most important thing in my life. It's the foundation, right? I can't show up as a father, as a coach, as a husband, anything else if I don't show up for myself, right? There's literally nothing in my cup to be able to give to other people if I have nothing in there. So I feel like it's the most essential thing that I have in my life, and I do feel guilty about it sometimes, like going out for my walks in the morning by myself and such. But I just look at it as like, what's the alternative? I can't live with the alternative. So I will show up for myself so that I can be the best version of myself for everybody else.
Such a perfect reframe. Now, you're probably saying I spelled busy, but we actually put an exclamation point at the end of it. What is your favorite healthy source of dopamine?
Oh, healthy source of dopamine. Sunlight, getting
Yeah,
outside. I think that's the easiest one. It's the one that requires no money, right, for any of us. I mean, I guess depending on where you live, having sunlight's a little bit easier in other places. But being able
just
just to get
remind
outside
everyone
and be
where
with
you live,
nature.
Cam, because it always makes
Yeah,
me jealous as well.
yeah, I live in Southern California, so sunlight is much more abundant for me than, other places. But at the same time, I mean, even if I didn't have the sunlight, just getting out and touching grass, like just watching nature, seeing the trees move with the wind, like just little things like that, and understanding that those are such blessings that we have in our life that we didn't have to do anything, right, to be able to have in front of us. So I think that's one of my favorite dopamine hits for sure.
That's awesome, man. If there's any place, I'm going to rehaul this. Where can people find out more about you? Because you are an amazing human being. And if they listen to this and they're like, you know what, this might be my guy to coach me, where can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I mean, Instagram's obviously an easy one, right? Where you could actually like message me and be able to get a personal experience, and that's flexcam_91, just like how it sounds. FlexCam_91. Title.com, which is T1DIAL.com, is where you'll be able to get a full overview of what we do as a community, what we do as a team and a family, more about my journey, etc. And I would just recommend for people just to reach out, just say, hey, don't be scared. I'm not going to bite. I'm not going to immediately try to sell you something. I promise you. I always like to be able to see whether that's even something people need. And honestly, I like being able to just interact with people. So that's what I would say.
Love it. We'll definitely leave a link in the show notes. And Cam, just thanks for coming on. I always enjoy our talks. And, I love how much of our philosophies align. And this was a great time, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate you for bringing me on. And likewise, man, our conversations, especially on Instagram, are always great.
The best. All right, busy bariatrics. If this one hit, that means it's time to stop collecting awareness and start applying action. Don't just nod along. Go prove to yourself that you're coachable, consistent, and capable. Leave me a comment on Spotify about what you're going to do now that you've heard me and Cam give you all the ways that you can start burning fat, building muscle, and working the mindset to do it all. And as always, keep getting busy.